It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the Box. LSU opens the 2024 season 3-0 after an 11-8 victory over VMI on Friday, a 2-0 shutout of Central Arkansas on Saturday, and then walloping the Keydets one more time on Sunday, 27-5. LSU will play Central Arkansas tonight to officially wrap up the first weekend of play for the 2024 season. We will get you a brief preview on tonight's ball game, or excuse me, this afternoon's ball game, I should say, before we get out of here today. But we have a lot to talk about over the first three games of the season. We saw dominant pitching performances. We saw some elite offense up and down the lineup. Two freshmen really stand out. Some really clean defense for LSU. One extraordinary defensive play, which we now have some analytics on that I can't wait to get into with all of you. So a full weekend at the box to recap here today. And then, as I said, we'll get you a brief preview of this afternoon's game, 2 o'clock first pitch between LSU and Central Arkansas. Who do the Tigers start on the mound? Who do they have left that can really go out on the mound? And that number of arms that they have left will surprise you when we get into that portion of the show. But off the top, we'll remind you to subscribe, hit the bell, smash the like button on this video. Really helps out the channel, really helps out the video, and I greatly appreciate it. Listen on the podcast app. You can find us on any podcast app, wherever you get your podcast. That's greatly appreciated. Subscribe up there as well. Follow me on Twitter at Musso Matthew. Find the new Facebook page, Matt Musso. You can go ahead and follow that as well. That's where we post a lot of the content from the show on Facebook, is on the professional Facebook page now, as opposed to the personal one. So again, that one is Matt Musso. That's where you can find me. And now let's get into the baseball. So let's start with Friday's game, opening day. Obviously highly anticipated, a lot of action around the game. They had the fan fest going. I mean, it was, the cannon out in the outfield, firing it off when the team takes the field. Just a lot of fanfare and hype surrounding LSU taking the field for the first time in defense of their national championship. And we told you on Friday before that game about VMI and how this team, they weren't going to have a lot on the mound, but they were a real lineup, and it was going to be a great test for Thatcher Hurd in his first start of the season, as well as LSU's pitching staff as a whole, and it was. That is a real lineup, y'all. They are going to do very, very well nationally again this season. Because, I mean, they did that against LSU. I mean, 8 runs, obviously, in that first game on 11 hits. They tried to get the running game going, didn't have as much success, but still found a way to impact the game on the base paths regardless of that, just because of the threat. Remember, that was a team that stole 192 bases last year. That led the country. So plenty of stress put on LSU in that first game, and I thought that was a very good thing. And overall, I thought LSU really responded well to it, even Thatcher Hurd, and I'll explain what I mean. But let's get into that game a little bit first, shall we? So Thatcher Hurd comes out in the first inning and, man, was very, very good. Strikes out the first batter. It was a long at bat, 10-pitch at bat, but he battled, got the fastball by him, and gets the K. Would give up an infield single to the next hitter, but Milazzo hoses Trey Morgan at second base, and Hurd wraps up that inning with a strikeout. So, I mean, faces the minimum there. Does the same thing in the second inning. He's just kind of cruising through. Another strikeout. This one looking, a pair of ground outs, and, 6 up, 6 down in a way for Thatcher Hurd. So looked really, really strong. The fastball velocity was there. The fastball command was really there for Thatcher Hurd as well. It was a lot of fastball slider. We didn't really see the curveball much. Nate Yeske and Thatcher Hurd really focused in on mixing fastball with slider, and it was working great. Of course, in the bottom of the second is when LSU gets on the board for the first time. You have back-to-back singles, one by Travinski, one by Pearson, and then Jared Jones steps up and on a 1-1 count hammers a fastball into the left field bleachers, and LSU has their 3-0 lead. Then you get to the third inning, and that's when things obviously started to unravel on Thatcher Hurd. And you look at the situation. He gets a line out to shortstop to start that inning. I wouldn't necessarily call it, a scalded hit line drive. It was more of the soft liner. Braswell just took a step to his left, step to his right and made the grab. It was really no problem. He comes back, gets Prince Owen looking on a strikeout, Owen Prince. But the problem that you started to see was Hurd kind of started falling behind in the count. Like the line drive to Braswell was a 2-1 pitch. Owen Prince strikes out, but it's on a full count. It was just a little bit, and by the way, that at bat started 3-1. So Hurd really had to work back in. The command just wasn't as crisp right there for Thatcher Hurd. Kaz Jordan draws a walk, also on a 3-2 count. He advanced the second on a balk. That's where everything really unraveled. So that's the 9-hole hitter in Kaz Jordan who you walk and you flip to the top of that order. And on top of it, the pressure that running game puts on you, Hurd's trying to be too quick with his pickoff move and balks. So you move that runner over all with 2 outs, and now you're facing Ty Swaim at the top of the order. And again, behind in the count at 2-1, Swaim singles to the right side. That gets VMI on the board. He would then steal second, and then a Trey Morgan single. That's in a 2-2 count. That was disappointing because it was a fastball that caught too much of the plate. Hurd was trying to finish him off, and he just couldn't. Again, the fastball caught too much of the plate, and that's a single to center field. Scores another run. Justin Stark, who is, the big bopper in this lineup, comes up, singles to right field. It was a nubber right off the cap of the bat. It hit the foul line. That was a double. Hits the foul line, stays fair off of that. Goes into the bullpen. That scores another run, and then Cole Jenkins, 2-1 count, again behind Thatcher Hurd there, singles to left field, and that ends his day. It was really unexpected, and it unraveled very fast on Thatcher Hurd. Now, I have plenty of thoughts on that I want to get to after we finish this recap of the game. So we'll come back to it, so stay with me. Justin Lohr comes in and gets Fitzwater to strike out swinging. That was huge, and it limited the damage because you did still have a runner on base, but ultimately you go down 4-3. This was a key moment in the game, though, obviously, because it's something we talked about so much last season for LSU's offense. As soon as they fell behind, they responded, bam, just like that, and they did the same thing here, and I loved seeing that. Travinski led off with the single up the middle. Bingham, after a pop-out and a strikeout, is hit by a pitch. That was a theme for VMI in this game. And then Paxton Kling doubles down the left field line with 2 outs to score both runs and give LSU the lead back. That was huge. Justin Lohr ran into a little bit of trouble in the 4th inning. Some of it his own doing. After after a fly out to start the inning, a single, and then a throwing error trying to pick off. Again, the pressure that their running game puts on an opposing defense. It's a 1-run ball game. Tying runs on. You're trying to keep them close. You throw the ball up the line, and ultimately that moves the runner over to third base. It was that wild of a throw. It's a 2-base error there, which was huge. And you have a runner at third with less than 2 outs against a lineup like this. Chances are they're going to find a way to get him home, and they did. Owen Prince doubles to left field. Unearned run comes across on Justin Lohr. Ties the game. Ties the game back up at 5. What was huge for Lohr, while it might not have been the debut you wanted to see from him, he struggled kind of pounding the strike zone a little bit. I can give it to you here. 26 pitches, only 13 of them for strikes for Lohr on Friday. You'll see him pound the zone, obviously, a lot more. But what he did, he limited the damage, and that was big. He kept the game tied going to the 5th inning, and that was huge. In the top of the 5th inning is where you saw Nate Ackenhausen come in, and this is really where LSU's pitching was able to stabilize the game. Ackenhausen was fantastic throughout his outing in this ball game, but even in the 5th inning, he was really dominant. He only made one bad pitch. Unfortunately, it was a 1-2 pitch, and Cole Jenkins hit it out of the park, and that gave VMI the lead back at 6-5. But the bounce back from Ackenhausen after that is a strikeout. Gets ahead immediately in the count 1-2 and finishes Fitzwater off. That's ultimately what you want to see. And then Ackenhausen really settled in, man. He really settled in. His top of the 6th was, dominant. Strikeout of Cole Garrett, strikeout of Jimmy Koza, walks Owen Prince, but then strikes out Kaz Jordan right after that. So strikes out the side with a walk in between, and then that's when LSU was able to really bust the game open. VMI, the pitching the roof really caved in on their pitching staff in the bottom of the sixth. They hit 5 batters in that inning. Kling led off with a hit by pitch. Neal was hit by a pitch right after that. So you have first and second. Braswell comes up with the sac bunt to move runners to second and third. Jake Brown steps into the box. He's hit by a pitch. Tommy White comes up with the bases loaded. He's hit by a pitch. So that scores a run to tie it. Hayden Travinski steps up right after that. He's hit by a pitch. That scores a run to give LSU the lead. Josh Pearson would pop up in between all of that chaos. Jared Jones draws a bases-loaded walk, gives LSU a 7-5 lead, and then Mac Bingham doubles down the left field line to really blow the game open, and that got LSU to 10-6 at that point, and you're starting to feel pretty good. Another 0 put up by Nate Ackenhausen, in the 7th inning. And it looks like, okay, you've got this set up the way you want it, right? Gavin Guidry's down there throwing in the bullpen. So is Gage Jump. You can go, jump, Guidry, jump, however you want to, and really put this ball game away. And that's what I thought LSU was going to do. It is not what they did. They brought Nate Ackenhausen back out for the 8th inning, and I thought that was interesting, especially early in the season, man. He had really given you everything he had up to that point, and it looked like you had it set up, like we just talked about, to go for it, your back end prime position. They put Ackenhausen back out there, and he walks Cole Jenkins on a 3-2 count to lead off the inning, gives up a double to Fitzwater on a 3-2 count. That scores Jenkins, makes it 10-7, and at that point, they go get Gavin Guidry. Guidry comes in. He's pitching from behind in the count a little bit, but gets the first 2 batters that he faces, then unfortunately loses Owen Prince on a full count, so he walks. You end up with runners at first and second. At that point, Ryan Peterson steps up to the plate, and Guidry gets the ground ball that he needs, gets ahead in the count, pounds his own, gets the ground ball that he needs, but unfortunately he had a throwing error there from Michael Braswell, and that allows Fitzwater to score, and you have runners at second and third with 2 outs in a 2-run ball game and the top of the order coming up. And this was a major statement made by Jay Johnson. He goes and gets Gavin Guidry and brings in Sam Dutton. And I tweeted it in that moment. This is a hell of a spot for Sam Dutton. Let's see what he's got. But what have we talked about in that inning to this point? Guys falling behind. Whether it was Ackenhausen, whether it was Guidry. You had 4 3-ball counts. 4 3-ball counts to that point in that inning, and it really allowed VMI to get back in the ball game. What we've talked about all offseason and even most of last season of Sam Dutton, he throws strikes. So you go get him, but you bring him in a really, really tight spot, and he gets the ground out. He gets Swaim to ground out and end the threat, and that was huge. Hayden Travinski hits the ball off the scoreboard in the bottom of the 8th to make it 11-8, and then Gage Jump comes in, y'all, and was freaking electric. I mean, Gage Jump, that was everything we had heard about him, right? Everything we had talked about here. He was electric. The fastball got up to 96, had 2 strikeouts and a lazy fly ball, dropped a couple nice breaking balls in to Stark, but other than that, it was gas. And the ball jumps out of his hand. Their scoreboard, or the gun on the scoreboard reads 96. It looks more like 99. It has great carry to it and holds its life throughout the zone. That is an awesome pitch. And I will tell you this right now. Yes, Gage Jump looked dominant at the back end of your bullpen, but that guy is going to be a starting pitcher for this team. Whenever they are fully ready to turn him loose after the recovery from Tommy John and missing all of last year with that, whenever they're ready to fully turn him loose, he's going to be in the starting rotation. And I really would be surprised if at some point he's not at the front of LSU's rotation this year. It has nothing to do with Thatcher Hurd. It really doesn't. It's just the electricity. The electricity that you get out of Gage Jump is something, man. It looks Friday night. It has that look. So, we'll see. Again, I think Hurd, like I've said, is going to be the guy when you need a game that you have to win late in the postseason or not. You're going to want to give the ball to Thatcher Hurd because he's been through those battles. And that's why he's going to be a valuable piece for LSU wherever he pitches in this rotation. But man, Gage Jump looked I mean, every bit as advertised at the back end of that bullpen. He was awesome, but he will find a home in the rotation at some point this season. Let's double back. So LSU gets the win 11-8. It wasn't easy, wasn't always pretty, but they had a lot of guys step up in big spots, and that was huge. And we're going to come back to Sam Dutton in a little bit. Let's double back to Thatcher Hurd, because I said, yes, even though that inning snowballed on him and he only got through 2 2/3 and gave up the 4 runs, it's not what any of us had on our bingo card, right, for Thatcher Hurd. There's no reason to push the panic button. I actually saw a lot of good in Thatcher Hurd, and here's why. One of the things we talked about plenty last year, and even leading into this season, when Hurd struggled last year, he could never limit the damage, right? He always kind of gave up that big inning, and yes, that happened. That happened on Friday afternoon, but it happened different. He got hit. And that's going to happen sometimes. And I can live with that a lot more than I can live with him walking guys. He only had the 1 walk. Thatcher Hurd, while he fell behind in the count in that 3rd inning a lot, and that led to his undoing, he was able to find it and get back in the zone. They hit the ball. The pitch maybe wasn't as crisp of a strike but he got hit by a good lineup. He did. I know that might be hard for some to accept just looking at the name on the jersey, but that was a top 5 lineup in the country last year in batting average and returned 7 guys from that line. It's a legit team. It's a legit lineup. They're going to hit all year long. And I would rather him get hit, and he wouldn't even hit hard. The last hit he gave up was scalded. But outside of that, they put the bat on the ball, and it found the right spots. It's not even they were squaring him up. He fell behind in the count, and when he tried to get back in it, they were able to put the bat on the ball. So I can look at that outing and say, okay, he at least didn't, they earned it, is what I can look at. And I'm a lot more encouraged with him going back out there this weekend against Northern Illinois or Stony Brook, whichever day they decide to pitch him. My guess is it'll probably be Thursday against Northern Illinois. But whichever day they decide to pitch him going out there and having a dominant outing, because he was on cruise control through the first 8 batters of that ball game. And then it just kind of went away. There was a lot of uncomfortability there. It started raining at that point. There was a lot of things that could have contributed to that. He got very uncomfortable on the mound, and that's not something you want to see, but he at least was able to make them earn it. And that is encouraging to me, as opposed to kind of what you saw with them scoring their runs on Sunday, which we will get to. So I'm not pressing a panic button with Thatcher Hurd at all. And if anything, I'm encouraged that there weren't a lot of walks, and even with him struggling with command, he was able to get back in the zone, and they hit him, and they earned it. I want to see how he bounces back. That's what I'm really looking forward to, is the next outing from Thatcher Hurd. And I actually think he's going to pitch very, very well. Let's move on to Sunday. Let's move on to Saturday. This is an important start now for Luke Holman, because the weather Saturday sucked. It was awful, y'all. It was 47 degrees at first pitch. The wind is galing in from center field at, 15 miles per hour. It feels like it's in the 30s. It's not going to be a day conducive to offense. So what you have to do is stay in the strike zone and have great command. And Luke Holman did that. And you want him to extend in this spot too, because you're coming off that rough outing from Thatcher Hurd. Can he stabilize the rotation? Can he pick his guy up? The answer to that was a resounding yes, and you got that answer very early on in the first inning. Strikes out the first 2 batters of the ball game, gets a ground out, and you're off and running. He proceeds to put up 4 straight zeros. But let's go to the top of the 4th inning, where Holman first found himself in a little bit of trouble. So at that point, it's still a scoreless game. Not a lot of offense to be had, right? We talked about that. A.J. Mendelia leads off with a double in that inning, and then Sermonelli singles. So you have runners at the corners at that point. in the ball game. Excuse me. Runners at the corners. Nobody out. Preston Curtis comes up. Strikeout swinging. Sermonelli would steal second base. Shipley comes up. 3 pitches. Strikeout swinging. Drew Sturgeon comes up. 4 pitches. Strikeout looking. It was masterful from Luke Holman in that 4th inning. Masterful. To give up a double and a single, have runners at first and third, no out, end up with runners at second and third in that inning, but he strikes out the side and does not allow anything. He was great. The fastball played up in the zone all day long. The slider was very good. We didn't even really see his curveball. Again, Nate Yeskie choosing to really focus in fastball, slider there. There's so much more in the tank from Luke Holman. He was awesome at that point. In the 5th inning, more of the same for him. He was awesome. Added another strikeout there. I also should mention, after, I totally skipped over this, that's my fault. After he stands up, gets those 3, strikes out the side, after allowing the double and the single in the bottom of the 4th, that's when LSU broke through on the scoreboard. So Stravinsky's hit by a pitch to lead off the inning. After a fly out and a ground out, Michael Braswell draws a walk to extend that inning, and Stephen Milam, the freshman, getting his first action, steps up and singles to right field in that spot and drives in the first run of the ball game. First pitch that he saw. So some 2-out magic there for LSU. Really credit Braswell for being able to draw that walk to extend the inning, and Stephen Milam with the aggressiveness to drive in that run. His first hit of many on the weekend and in his LSU career, and his first RBI of many on the weekend and in his LSU career. So another 0 from Holman in the 6th inning. In the 5th inning, LSU would go quietly in the bottom half. They bring Holman back out for the top of the 6th, which kind of surprised me. He gets the ground out, and then Mendelia singles, and that's when they would go get Griffin Herring. And that would lead to the highlight reel play of the day for LSU, and it came from Paxton Kling. We'll get to that. So Herring comes in. Mendelia advances to second on a wild pitch. So it's a 1-0 ball game. You have a runner at second. Sagely would fly out. Excuse me. Hold on. Mendelia comes in, advances to second on the wild pitch. It's a full count to Sagely. He hits the ball to center field. Well, really left center field. Paxton Kling is shaded over towards right. Bingham was playing in, so there's no way he can get to it. Paxton Kling's the only person who could get to this baseball, and he does. Makes a sensational diving catch. Wasn't even in the shot on the television, and then comes literally out of nowhere and makes this grab and saves a run and keeps LSU with a 1-0 lead. The LSU baseball data Twitter page released the numbers behind that. Paxton Kling on that catch, if you haven't seen this, Paxton Kling on that catch covered 93.9 feet, reached a max speed of 20.2 miles per hour. It had a 31.6% catch probability, and the route he took to the ball, 98.9% route efficiency. It was a major league catch in every sense of the word, every sense of the term, and it saves the game up to that point for LSU. Keeps Central Arkansas off the scoreboard and picks up your pitcher in Griffin Herring, who battled out there. Didn't have his best stuff, but battled. He really struggled falling behind in the count. That was a 3-2 pitch. He would then walk Curtis on a 3-1 count, but would come back and get Shipley swinging to end the inning. So while he didn't have his best stuff, he does what a veteran does. He did what a veteran does. He battled and kept the opposing team off the scoreboard. So more zeros for LSU there in the bottom half of the inning. They would bring Herring back out. He gets a ground out, but then back-to-back walks put runners on, and that's it for Herring. They go get Fidel Ulloa, and I was so fired up to watch Uyoho come into this spot. It's a spot we have talked about seeing him in scrimmages before. Remember, he came in with a runner at second base with one out, and he had to face White, Travinsky, and Jones. He struck out White. So he comes into this spot, runners at first and second, one out, 1-0 ball game to make his LSU debut, and just starts throwing gas. It's Reed Bowman at the plate, who was the second leading hitter last year for Arkansas, and their returning leading hitter in a sense, like the highest average returning onto the team, and 3 pitches, goodbye. Uyoho punches him out. 3 pitches, gas, beautiful. Tanner Leonard comes up right after that, works the count full, but he strikes out swinging. Just a massive statement made by Fidel Uyoho in that spot to come in his debut, 1-0 game, first and second, get the 2 punch outs. That was awesome. A 0 for LSU in the bottom half of the 7th inning. Uyoho comes back out to start the 8th inning. Walks Mendelia to lead it off, but then gets a fly out and a strikeout. Looks like he's going to escape, but a single through the right side of the infield from Shipley has runners at first and second, and that chases Uyoho. Another huge spot here in the ballgame. Another huge spot in the ballgame. First and second, 2 outs, 1-0 game, and how about DJ Primo? Jay Johnson goes and gets DJ Primo to come make his LSU debut. Remember, he redshirted last year, and we played the cut for you on the pitching preview last week, where Jay Johnson was talking about Primo, saying we couldn't get him on the field last year. Now he's going to be in the game when it matters most. And here he was. And he was awesome. Gets Sturgeon to ground out, ends the threat, and then Jared Jones in the bottom of the 8th inning hits the home run to put you up 2-0. And another big spot for Sam Dutton. Another big spot for Sam Dutton. And he delivers, man. Fly out, strike out, single mixed in between, and then another strikeout, and LSU gets the win. Sam Dutton gets the save. The spots that they put Dutton in this weekend were massive, and he responded. And I like the way they've used him an awful lot. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Sam Dutton is going to is going to be the stalwart at the back end of LSU's bullpen. I'm not telling you that he's your closer. What I am telling you, though, is the way he executed this weekend and the way they used him, I love. And here's why. We talked a lot last year. Jay Johnson, it was from his mouth, from the horse's mouth, where he talked about Sam Dutton and how he was really good in those 1-inning spurts. And they just could never really master using him there last year, even though the head coach told you he's best in the 1-inning spurts. And you can go back to Dutton's freshman year where he served as an opener for LSU, and they didn't have a third starter. Sam Dutton served as your opener then, and he was really good in, early in the game. But that second trip through the lineup, he kind of got out of whack. But the stuff, you could see the stuff was very good. Using him to come get an out in a big spot or to come, get you an inning of relief when you need it in a close game. If you can trust him enough to hand him the ball there, that's going to be massive for this team going forward. Because, again, as we said, the stuff's good. I mean, it's a low 90s fastball. He'll bump 94 every now and then. The slider can be a really good pitch. He throws strikes. In the game, Friday, he comes in, throws 3 pitches, 2 of them were strikes. In the game on Saturday, he throws 15 pitches, 10 of them were strikes. He pounds the zone. He did that all of last year. They just got hit. These weren't getting hit. And you could look at the competition, that's fine, but he got hit by everybody last year. I love the idea of him being a good 1-inning guy in a tight ball game for LSU this year, whether it's in the 9th inning, the 5th inning, wherever. If you need outs and strikes in a tough spot, I would love for Sam Dutton to develop into that guy because he's a veteran, he's a righty, which this bullpen needs, and he's great in a 1-inning spurt. And he's proven that. So I'm very curious to see how they continue to use him throughout because I think he could be a really big weapon for this bullpen, as I do Fidel Uyoho. And y'all know that. I've talked about him plenty leading up to this season, and now you know why. You saw it. He was awesome. I mean, he was awesome. And he can be that stopper kind of for you in the middle of a game, too. So, very excited there. Luke Holman. Let's talk Luke Holman because he was incredible. I mean, 5 1/3 shutout. He only gave up 3 hits and punched out 10. watching that game, Luke Holman reminds me of Ty Floyd with a more consistent breaking ball. He doesn't throw as hard as Floyd, but he wants to pitch the exact same way. While Floyd would be able to run it up 97, 98, Holman's going to be much more, 91, 93, but the fastball has that same type of carry throughout the zone, and because of that, it plays well up. You saw that, and he wants to dominate up in the zone with the fastball and drop the slider or the curve off of it, just like Ty Floyd wanted to do. The thing that leads to Holman being more consistent with it is the breaking balls were consistent. When Floyd had the breaking ball, he was unhittable. I mean, he was dominant. Think about the World Series game against Florida or even against Wake Forest. I mean, he was great those days. He had his start against Arkansas where he went 6 2/3. He was great with that. Holman looks like he can be a little bit more consistent, but it's the same premise, and that's what he reminded me of. They're comparable in size out there on the mound, too. That's kind of the comp I would give you. Doesn't throw as hard, but has a more consistent breaking ball, wants to pitch the exact same way, and he was dominant. And the moxie, the poise that he showed out there on the mound was huge because, like we said off the jump, recapping this game, that was a big spot for him to come in and really need to stabilize LSU's rotation, and he did it, and he could not look more like a stable he could not look like more of a stable piece, I should say, in LSU's rotation right now. He ain't going anywhere, and that's a big weapon to have as your number 2 in Luke Holman. 10 out of 10, man. No complaints on the Holman outing. So LSU gets the 2-0 win there. Didn't have a lot of hits, but had a lot of good at-bats in that ball game. Brady Neal really stands out. He scolds 2 balls to first base, got robbed of a hit twice. So really had a nice day on the at the plate, regardless of, only having 2 runs on, 6 hits. But just a lot of good ABs for LSU on Saturday. All right, yesterday's ball game. We're not going to spend an awful lot of time on this because, LSU won 27-5. It was a beatdown. Javen Coleman got the start. I thought he pitched very well. He had great feel for the fastball. It was up to 93. Didn't have the best feel for his secondary pitch, but didn't really need it because the fastball command was so good, and he was spotting it up, and it was moving, man. The swings and misses, VMI, even when they did contact, it was a lot of soft contact. You could just tell it had a lot of movement on it. So I loved what I saw from Javen Coleman. The 2 walks, we'll get past that, but punched out 3 and 3 shutout ball. So got his first win on the year. Was very happy with what we saw from Javen Coleman. Brady Neal was sensational in the ball game yesterday. 3 for 3. It shows you again what we were talking about in the game on Saturday. The at-bats he was taking was fantastic. He got robbed of 2 hits. He didn't get robbed yesterday, y'all. 3 for 3, 6 RBI. He was a triple shy of the cycle, and the home run was a grand slam that really blew the ball game open in the 3rd inning for LSU. Brady Neal on an offensive day where LSU set a program record for singles with 20, had 27 hits total, and scored 27 runs. On a day where everybody hit, Brady Neal gets your game ball because he was awesome. If it's not Brady Neal, I'm giving it to Stephen Milam because Stephen Milam was awesome. 4 for 6. He really should have been 5 for 6. They ruled that hit he had in the first inning an error. Nobody touched the baseball. It should not have been ruled an error, and I wish they would have gone back and corrected that, but they didn't. But, he was awesome, and he was awesome all weekend, y'all. 5 hits over 2 days for him, and a total of 4 RBI, and played a clean second base. You look at, a guy like Josh Pearson, he'll get back in the lineup. They'll give him more ABs, but, for Milam, it's going to be, can he keep this going? Or is this what you see from freshmen sometimes where they can really feast in the non-conference, and when they get into the teeth of SEC play, do you go back more to a veteran like Josh Pearson? We will see, but you got options there. Stephen Milam is showing you that you got options, and we told you when we were doing the offensive preview, he might start the year as a reserve, but anytime he comes up to the plate, keep your eye on him because he's going to be a star at LSU. He's got a bright future. He started to show you that this weekend. He was great as well. I thought Mac Bingham had a great weekend as well at the plate, so no complaints there. Let's talk about Cam Johnson. It was the debut that everybody really, really, really wanted to see, and he struggled. There's just no way around it, y'all. He didn't really have a great feel for the fastball. He didn't have a great feel for the secondary stuff. Walked 6 batters. I thought his first inning I thought he showed a lot of moxie, though, man, because he loads the bases with walks, but he only gives up the one run. Really looked like he started to find it a little bit there, towards the end of that inning. Gets the strikeout to end the inning. Looks like he's going to, really be able to settle in, but after that, it's a long wait. LSU put up 3 more runs in the bottom half. He comes back off that, and he just never really had it. He'd leave with the bases loaded. 3 more walks there in that inning to load the bases. Will Helmers came in, and he struggled finding the zone a little bit as well. He would walk to allow some of those, all 3 of the inherited runners to score, so they all get charged back to Cam Johnson. Ultimately, Helmers gets out of it. No runs are charged to him, and ultimately he, gets a strikeout, I believe, to end that inning. Cade Woods, I thought, had a nice debut. Was a little bit more wild than I would have liked to have seen from him, but we've told you about that a little bit. He can be effectively wild at some points, and he was, and limited the damage very nicely. Also loaded the bases, limited the damage very nicely. I thought Aiden Moffitt closed out the game well for LSU. That was encouraging to see. Moffitt was at a 50% strike rate. I mean, we told you that. He's still working to find the zone a little bit more consistently, but when he needed to, did. And at that point, again, it's 27-5. Just throw the ball over the plate and let them get themselves out, and they did. So, I mean, there's not really much to complain there. We all wanted to see Cam Johnson have a dominant debut. He didn't. There are much brighter days ahead for that kid in an LSU uniform, and they will be this year. It's just, I mean, I feel very confident in saying that, because of what we saw him do in the fall against this LSU lineup, what we saw him, do in parts of this winter against this LSU lineup. He has the ability. It's your first outing out there, man. There's a lot of nerves. There's a lot of adrenaline. It's tough to hone it in. I love that they gave him that second inning. It just didn't work out. There will be plenty of better days ahead for Cam Johnson. And the stuff, you can see it. I mean, when he did land that slider, it was really good. When that fastball landed, I mean, he was hitting 95 miles an hour with it today. So, very good. And the same thing for Cade Woods. You wanted to see him kind of dominate a little bit more than maybe he did, but sometimes it's hard to pitch in those games, man. We always say just throw the ball over the plate, let him hit it. Sometimes it's hard to do that, and you're warming up, in the bullpen is going to be extended because LSU's scoring so many runs. There's a lot of things that do go into that. But again, with Cade Woods, you saw the stuff. He landed a couple dandy sliders in that ball game, and the fastball got up into the low 90s, but when he really started landing with it, he took a little bit off of it and really settled in at 89, 90, but he's got that ability at 93, 94. So you see the stuff there, you like it, and that, again, shows off the depth of this staff, and I thought that was something you saw immensely this weekend, the depth of the staff, whether it was Saturday, which was great to see, when you get a guy like Ulloa in there and Primo and Dutton again on a second day, that lengthens your bullpen to where you can save a guy like Cam Johnson or Cade Woods for a Sunday game. That's huge, and you saw that this weekend. And look, they dominated. LSU won a game 27-5, had a shutout, and they had to play a close game. They did it in a lot of different ways. A lot to be excited for with the Tigers coming off this weekend. Let's wrap it up with a brief thought on this afternoon's game. I think you see Cade Anderson get the baseball. The key thing that I want to watch with him, I think he's going to go out there and have a really nice first inning. How does he build off of that? When I've watched him pitch in the scrimmages, that second inning has really been a struggle for him. Not even a second trip through the lineup, the second inning. So that's what I'm really going to want to see from Cade Anderson, because I do believe he's going to get the baseball. It's going to be a fastball on the low to mid-90s, so really run it up there. 94 is where he'll top out. The slider's been very good. The curveball has some upside to it as well. So excited to see Cade Anderson. I do believe he'll get the start. We haven't even seen Christian Little yet, y'all. We haven't even seen Micah Bucknam yet. So I want to see Little, and I want to see what he can do out there. He warmed up in the bullpen a couple times this weekend. He will pitch today. I'm very confident in saying that. Guys who I think you could see come back for LSU as well, I think Justin Lohr could easily pitch again today. He only threw 26 pitches. Gavin Guidry threw 19. That's the guy that can come back. I think Sam Dutton maybe could give you an inning as well. I'll be curious to see what they do with Gage Jump if they decide to throw him again. He only threw 11 pitches, but with how they're bringing him back, what might they do there? So that's a possibility. If you go a little bit, I think think 36 pitches from Herring. I don't know. Maybe you could get an inning out of him. DJ Primo threw 2 pitches. He can absolutely come back. So, I mean, you're looking at a stacked staff tomorrow with Anderson potentially getting the start. You haven't seen Christian Little. You haven't seen Micah Bucknam. I think Laura can give you something. Guidry can give you something. Primo can give you something. That's 6 guys right there. You shouldn't need much more to get through that ball game because I think LSU will be able to score runs today as well. You're looking at Central Arkansas, who's also going to be on their 4th game. They did have a day off yesterday, but they're on their 4th game. They're not as deep on the mound as you. You should have an offensive advantage there as well. So, look, on Friday when we were here and we gave our prediction, said LSU would get all 4. They've gotten 3 of the 4. I expect them to get the 1 later this afternoon. So that's what you should look forward to in that ball game. Hope you enjoyed the recap. Smash the like button. Get subscribed to the YouTube channel and the podcast in general. Follow me on Twitter at Musso Matthew. Be here on Tuesday. We're recapping LSU's game against Central Arkansas right here on Musso at the Box.